Okay, so the next garment I'm gonna make is this smock, and it's not that different than um, the shirt we made. And depending where you look, like in England, the smocks would be something more like this. And this is very close to the shirt we made. So you have the sleeves cut from a square fabric, you have the front and the back cut from, again, just a long rectangular piece of fabric, and then you have square gussets for the underarm, and then you have kind of like a gusset type of piece on the side. This is the triangular piece of fabric that is put on both the side seams just to give it shape and to give it more volume. That's kind of how volume is generated in this. This is way too close to the one we just made, so I decided to do this one that's more of an Italian fashion from the times. What's interesting about this one is the neck shape is different. So this would be, the neck would fall down lower, it doesn't have a collar, and the sleeve as well as the fronts and backs are gathered onto that neck, and that's what creates the volume. But this gets the volume from attaching a lot of I think it's 3 pieces of like a fabric roll together, and that width is all gathered into the neckline, and you get your volume from that, as opposed to getting the volume from adding these pieces on the side seam. So I thought they're interesting. The craftsmanship on these is crazy. Like this is the armhole. Very interesting construction. Really cool craftsmanship. Some really nice embroidery on it. The sleeves are fully embroidered in a kind of a pattern, and then you have like the strips going from top to bottom of embroidery as well, and on top of that you have the embroidery on the bottom there. So quite a lot of work went into that. This is kind of what it would look like underneath. So I think, from what I understand, she's wearing a smock underneath this little cape thing. She's wearing a smock, and I think it's tied into her what do you call it, like underhose. I don't know if the underhose is only for men, but her pants basically. So we're gonna make this. I have pretty much all the details I need for it here. We're not gonna make it, again, we're not gonna exactly go off this because we have certain freedoms that Chloe gives us, but we're gonna try to stick to like the construction techniques. So yeah, I'm not gonna try to diverge too much from the techniques used. I'm gonna try to use the same exact techniques, but I'm not gonna try to copy it one for one. For example, I'm not gonna sew together 3 strips on the front and on the back. I'm just gonna make it one because there's no need to. Anything interesting on this? Nothing really crazy. We have the gussets going onto the underarm. This is the sleeve that's gathered there. This is half of the front and this is half of the back. And then here you have a piece of fabric that goes on top of the shoulder. And the neckline is basically what you see here is the neckline, and that's all gathered. And on this line here, it basically just gets folded over, and then you get the other half. So this is the left half, because this is the back, this is the front. So I'm starting here with just 2 big rectangles, and I'm taking the width measurement straight from the notes I was referencing earlier. And basically the width needs to be this large because all of the shaping we get on the smock comes from the amount of gathering we get at the neck. So for that you just need a very wide piece of fabric. In reality, they didn't have a fabric roll as wide as this, so this was made actually from 3 different panels on the front and 3 different panels on the back that were the width of a fabric roll, so 3 of those put together, and then there would be a seam created there to get the width necessary. And then I'm adding these kind of shoulder straps and shoulder pieces, and you can start seeing the neckline come together. It's a very square neckline, and it's a little bit counterintuitive that this would result in what it comes out as, but eventually it gets this very, very nice curve and it becomes very, very circular, even though as a pattern on the 2D, it's very, very square. And before I move on here, I'm actually going to split the front and the back into down the center back and the center front, and then I'm going to use symmetric patterns with sewing on the front and on the back so that I don't have to do everything twice. Basically with this, if you're doing something on the left side, it gets copied over to the right side and you don't have to do anything if the pattern is symmetric. And now this part of the process is all about seeing how big and how much elastic I want across the neckline, and I'm just referencing back this all the way to the original reference, and always kind of checking in to see if it looks right or if it feels right. I think I decreased the width of the fabric just a little bit, but yeah, I'm making a lot of use of pins here, because if you don't, this will just fall straight to the floor. And as you see on my elastic, I'm putting it only where the neckline is. I'm not putting it all the way across the top of the front and back body pieces. And then I'll eventually put an elastic on the shoulder pieces as well. But yeah, it's all about playing with that elastic ratio and elastic strength just to get something you like and something that looks good. And now you can see the neckline really start being more circular across the front and the back, and that's just because of gravity. Like, there's so much fabric on the front and the back that it just gets dragged down and just creates this nice circle. And just following on with the pattern, I'm just making the shoulder straps on the neckline just a little bit more circular, but nothing too crazy. And then at this point, I'm trying to figure out how I'm gonna place the sleeve and just how far down the body it will go. The sleeve is very typical for the time. It's just a square piece of fabric with a square gusset at the armpit. So it's nothing crazy, but it is a technique that I'm still new to. I've learned, like, the sleeves I know how to make are very much like contemporary modern sleeves, which are curved at the armhole, and you don't really use gussets anymore. But this is a very, very interesting way of working with the sleeves nonetheless. My goal here is to kind of give it enough volume towards the top so that we get the nice gathering from the shoulder going into the sleeve and down to the wrists, just as we saw in the reference. And the hardest part for gussets for me is always just keeping track of which side is sewn to where, just because the square piece of fabric it's kind of like tough to remember if one of the sides is on the back, one of the sides is on the sleeve, one of the sides is, or wherever else it goes. So I'm just trying to figure out at this point and just get the sewing marks correct. And yeah, it's just, you have to kind of fight around with it a few times, because you're putting the gusset at the armpit, and the armpit is already an area that gets bunched up a lot. So trying to introduce a new piece of fabric there, and CLO3D always gets these like little artifacts, so you kind of have to just pull around, make sure everything looks fine. Here I was fighting this one quite a bit, so it's just a regular occurrence in CLO3D, so you just gotta kind of deal with it. And now you can kind of see how the gathering on the neck is nicely flowing into the sleeves. And when we add the elastic at the wrist here, you're gonna start really seeing the kind of flow of that of the fabric move really nicely across the sleeve. And I think this is the first time I realized that CLO3D has a shirring function, which I've never used before. I didn't know it existed. I kind of overlooked it until now, which is surprising. There's like not that many things from CLO that I don't know about at this point. So it was good to find this and to kind of like look into it a little bit more, because one of my biggest complaints that I've had so far was that the gathers don't look that realistic, especially when you have like a lot of gathers like in a Chemis or like a smock like this at the wrist. If you ever look at the examples from history, the gathering is very, very tight, and there's a lot of it, and you never really get that sense in CLO3D with the regular gathering. But then with the shirring, it actually kind of fixes this. And I'm playing around here with it, and I'm realizing I think 2 lines of elastic with shirring gets the nicest result for me. So I'm just kind of adding this all across all of the openings, just to make the gathering look really, really nice. Now, I'm not sure if this would be something I would do for a game-ready character, or if I'd introduce it in that flow. I'd have to experiment a little bit with it. I'm looking here, and because I was wondering if it's like a texture map that gets added on, but it's actual geometry that gets added on into CLO, which makes it look really, really nice. Yeah, I'm not sure if I would use this for a game character workflow, or if I would just sculpt it in ZBrush, but it does make such a big change in CLO, and I'm so happy I found it, because if I render stuff in CLO now, it looks so much better at the gatherings. But yeah, I kind of added those, and I don't think there was anything else left to do here. One part I did forget to record is I added, just like in the original tutorial, the first episode of the series with the shirt, I added the strips across the neckline and the wrist and the hem for me to add the bone lacing you see here. I brought everything basically into Substance Painter to give it some quick textures, just so we could picture it better. But yeah, this is kind of how it came out, and I'm really happy with it. It feels really nice. It looks really nice. The textures I added was like older linen textures, the same one I added to the shirt in the first episode. And then I made a quick embroidery that I added on top for the sleeves, just to get it closer to our reference, so we could visualize it better. And I made a quick bone lacing that I added for all of the openings, just to get it again closer to the reference. And it looks really nice like this. It's not 100% accurate to the reference, which I'm fine with, because I want this series to be more about the construction of the clothes and just the pattern drafting of it, aspect of it, rather than just creating one-to-one replicas of these things. If I were to spend enough time texturing it properly and getting everything correct, it would take a very long time, and my goal is to kind of move through these at a reasonable pace so that I can cover as many different types of garments from history as possible. That's like the main goal for the series. So I'll still do some basic texturing, because it's very, very tough to kind of visualize things if you're just leaving it with a regular CLO3D fabrics. So I'll always kind of try to give it a quick texture in Substance Painter. But other than that, I think I'll keep it pretty simple overall. And you can see a little bit of not really mistakes, but the problem with working kind of fast like this, where I'm just kind of taking it from CLO and putting it straight into Substance Painter and then giving it a texture, is that you see the seam between the shoulder piece and the front there. It's kind of visible, and a lot of these things you would kind of fix doing like a proper low poly and a proper bake for the textures and taking it through that whole process. But again, that's way too much work for this series, and it really I don't think it would benefit the end product that much for what I'm trying to achieve with it. But yeah, the next episode we're gonna go over some breeches, and then after that we're gonna do some plunder hose and a stay. So stay tuned for that. I'm trying to release these every week or so, but yeah, we'll see.